Hey everybody, and welcome back to the Dev Marketer channel. I'm your host, J.A. Curtis, but you guys can call me Alex. Now today's video, we're going to be revisiting our multiple authentication video, and I've actually done a slight modification to it because of basically at your guys' request. So a lot of people were having problems, or questions I should say, about logging out with multiple users. And so although I originally promised that part 4 would be about forget my password and addressing all of that, I'm going to push that back one more part. We'll do that in part 5. And I want to address these issues before we get into the forget my password, just to make sure everyone's on the same page and everyone understands how to use log out functionality with multiple different types of users. Okay. First thing I want to do before we actually like I said, get into doing those individual guards is we need to do a little bit of debugging. I want to show you guys something we can do so that we can fully understand how our application is working. And so what that is I am going to actually have a user interface module that actually shows if we're logged in as a user and if we're logged in as an admin. So I want to build that real quick so that we can easily see which one we're logged into, and then when we log out, we can see as what, if we're logged out of those. So it's going to allow us to really understand what our application is doing and how it's working. So in order to do this, we're going to actually create that little module as a component in Laravel. If you don't understand components, it'll be really easy as you see me use it. So components are just reusable, basically blade pages, almost like a partial, but it allows us to input them into sections, okay? You'll see what I mean as we get going. So let's go in here real quick. Let's go to our views. You can see we've got our main admin view. It does currently say you're logged in as an admin, but it's actually just assuming that based on the fact that we're at the admin dashboard. So what we're going to do here is replace this with a component. All right. So this is something new in Laravel 5.4 is components. So if you guys haven't had a chance to use it, this is actually a cool little tutorial to let you know how to use them. So we're going to be using the components module. You see it's just something with blade here. You do the @ component and then the name of the component. So we're going to store all of our components in a folder called components. And then we're going to call this, who, like who is, who, just to show if they're logged in or not. So we'll call it components.who, and that's all we actually need to do. We'll just output the component like that. Okay, now let's take this exact same thing here and let's go over to our home page. This is for users. This is the user dashboard, and we're going to paste the same thing inside of here. So once again, we've got our same components.who, and let's save that file. Lastly, let's go over to our welcome page. This is the default page. If nobody is logged in, this is what they will see. And let's just come down here and inside of our body, we'll just kind of, let's see. Well, we want to keep this. So inside of our content here, we'll just do something really basic real quick. Do a container, do a row, and then do a column MD8. Okay, so don't worry too much about that, just doing a centered column. And then inside of here, we can do a panel, and then inside of there, we'll do our component. Okay, so just a little bit of HTML, but don't worry too much about that. So everything is using the same component, okay? And so how do we build the component now? Well, we've told it everything that it's inside of a folder called components, and then the file is called who. So let's go ahead and make that. We can go over to our views. Let's go ahead and make a new folder inside of there called components. And I accidentally kind of closed the file. It kind of looked confusing there. So we've got inside of our views file, we have a folder called components, and this is where we can store all of our components. Of course, it doesn't need to be named components. You can name it anything, but I just, to kind of keep all the components separate, I do like to call it components just so that I know all my components are inside of there. The important thing is just to make sure that it's inside the view folder, because it's always going to look for a blade file inside of the view folder. Okay, so you could store this anywhere, but I just like to keep it inside of a components folder inside the view folder just to keep things organized. So inside of this components folder, let's make a new file, and this is going to be the who file. Who. So who.blade.php. This is going to demonstrate whether they're logged in or logged out. So inside of here, it's just basic blade. So we can go through and do an if statement. Inside the if statement is where we're actually going to check if the user is logged in or not logged in. Okay, now we need to do this twice. We need to do an if statement for if they're logged in as a user, and then we need to see if they're logged in as an admin. And then for each of those, we'll have to have an if else statement, if they're logged in, and if they're not logged in, then we'll say they're logged out, obviously. Okay, so inside of our condition here, all we need to do is do our auth, and then guard and then the guard that we want to check against. So in this case, for our main user, we have that web guard. Remember that? So web is the guard, and then we're going to say check, and that's just going to see if they're logged in. If they're logged in, it returns true. If they're logged out, it returns false. And of course, it only is checking for this one guard. So if someone's logged in as an admin, but not as a user, this will be false for this guard, but true for the admin guard, right? So that's what we're checking here. So we're just going to check real quick if they're logged in as a user. And if they are, then we can go ahead and output something. So inside of here, let's just output some basic text that says you are logged in as, and then we'll just do a user. Okay. So we'll do say you're logged in as a user, and then right inside of here, we can do an else statement, and then the else statement will be the opposite. So we'll say you're logged out. You are logged out as a user. And then go ahead, just we'll add a little bit of bootstrap class here. We can add a class to this paragraph called text danger, which will make the text red. And then this, we will add a text success, which will make the text green. Okay, just to kind of make it easy to show that it's logged in or logged out. From here, let's go ahead and grab this and paste it again. And we're just this time going to do the exact same thing, but we're going to check if they're an admin. So let's do that. So we're going to check this time against the admin guard and see if they're logged in as an admin. If they are logged in, let's just make those admin like that. And that'll basically be the exact same thing. So now we have a quick check. So this should all be saved. Let's go through now and look at this in the browser. So I don't have anything open. So let's come over here. And here, sure enough, we've got multiauth.dev. Let's go ahead and refresh this. You can see that you're logged out as a user, logged out as an admin. So we're not logged in as anybody. So let's go now and log in. We're going to our login/login. This is to log in as a user. So if we log in here, we'll log in as a user, not as an admin though. So let's just go ahead and do it. Went ahead and entered my password. And what you're going to see here is we are logged in as a user and logged out as an admin. So you can see the reason we did this real quick was for debugging purposes. We wanted to be able to see if we're an admin or if we're logged in as an admin or as a user or both. So this is going to allow us to basically demonstrate that. So now we know we're logged in as a user, so we should have access. Well, this is the user dashboard, so we have access to the user stuff. We would not have access to the admin stuff. If we go there, we'll get redirected to our admin login, just as we would want. So now let's go ahead and log in as an admin. Okay, so we're already logged in as a user. Now we're logging in as an admin. We should be logged in as both after the end of this. So our admin user, let's log in again. Go ahead and we're now on the admin dashboard, and you can see we're logged in as both a user and an admin. If we go to user, now we're on the user dashboard, logged in as everything, okay? So we're logged in as everything. Now let's take a look at the log out functionalities. Okay, so to do this part, what we're gonna do is we're going to build upon our existing controller, okay? So we've got everything here. We can close all of these. Let's close these up. And we don't really need to mess around with the views. So let's go ahead and close that up. And let's take a look at our controllers. So inside of our controllers folder, we've got our auth folder. We have our admin login controller. And then we've got our normal login controller, okay? And this is where we're gonna modify and do some custom log outs. It's ironic because this is the login controller, but if you look, the reason I wanna put it in the login controller is because by default, the default Laravel logout functionality, the one that comes baked in with Laravel, is actually located in this login controller.php. So it's only natural that we basically just stick with that same paradigm. We'll just put the logout functionality in this same controller where it already exists, and then we'll go ahead and also do the same one for admin inside the admin login controller, just to keep it consistent. If you wanted, you could create your own logout controller, but anyway, this is the way it currently is. So the first thing I want to do before we actually write the code is we're going to kind of look at the way that Laravel does it by default. So there's already a logout functionality inside this controller, and it's located inside of this authenticates users page, okay, this class page. So you can see that that comes from up here. So it's inside the Illuminate folder, Foundation, Auth, Authenticates Users. And that's actually where we inherit this login, the logout functionality, and all of that. And if you guys remember from the second video, I believe it was, we actually grabbed, I'm in the admin login controller right now, we actually grabbed this login form and kind of used it as inspiration. We grabbed it from that same Authenticates Users page. And we also did that with the show login form. So let's go ahead and take a look at the logout functionality in that same page. And then we're going to copy it here onto the admin login controller and into the user login controller. Okay, so it is located in Illuminate, Foundation, Auth, Authenticates Users. So let's come on down, and we're going to go to the vendor, Laravel, Framework, Source, Illuminate, and here we're going to go to Illuminate, Foundation, Auth, Authenticates Users. So Illuminate, and then Foundation, Auth, and then Authenticates Users. And here we go. This is looking familiar. This is where we got the stuff to populate our admin login controller. We grabbed the login form, we grabbed the login. And then down here at the very bottom, not the very bottom, but close to the bottom, we've got our logout functionality. So this is actually pretty basic. I'm going to go ahead and copy this, but there's actually not much that we have to do. Basically, we can just specify the guard and then call the logout function. That's really it, or method, I should say, the logout method. And then we just redirect them. So it's actually pretty easy. Let's go ahead and do it. And inside of our admin login controller, underneath the login function, let's go ahead and add our logout. So we've got our logout. We really don't need the request. We can just get rid of that. And then we're going to go ahead and specify that we want to log out of the guard. So what we can do here is we can actually just use the auth middleware. We'll say auth guard, specify the guard. In this case, it's admin. And then we're going to tell it to log out. Of course, remember that this comes from the guards that we identified inside of our config folder. So config auth.php, we've got guards here. So we're using this guard or whatever guard we're using, but in this case, the admin guard, and we're going to log them out of this guard, right? That's where these are coming from. So we're going to use auth guard admin and then force a logout, and then we're going to redirect to the slash, the main index page, you can call it. Now, the one thing to keep in mind is you want to get rid of these session flushes. The reason is that if you actually flush all the sessions, you're going to log out of both users, okay? So you're going to naturally log out of all the users. So if you just want to log out of one and not the other, then you need to keep the session data. So make sure to clear that out. And this is really all that we need to do. So now the only other thing to do before this works is tie this to a route, and then we're good to go, right? So we need to take this logout function, tie it to a route, and then we can access it. So let's, and in fact, before we tie it to a route, let's go ahead and do the same thing, but for users. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this. We're going to go to the login controller, and then I'm going to go ahead and extend this user controller down here at the bottom with the logout. Now, of course, we can't name it logout because, well, we could name it logout, I guess, but it would override what's inside of Authenticates Users. So just keep that in mind. If you still want to keep the logout functionality that's inside of here, then we need to name it something different. So in this case, I'm going to call it, we'll call it user logout, like that. And then we'll just do auth guard, this time the web guard, and then we'll log them out of the web guard and then redirect them home. Okay, that's all we got to do. So remember, we've got the user logout function inside of the login controller for users. This logs the user out, the user guard, or the web guard, but it's for the users. And then the admin controller logout is going to log out the admins. So now these are good to go. Let's just tie them to some routes. Let's close this up real quick. We'll come over to our routes file, and let's go ahead and create a route for these. So you can give this any kind of route that you want, but in this case, we'll do a get request, and we're going to go to logout. Okay, and keep in mind this is inside the admin prefix, so it's actually going to be admin/logout to get these, just because these are all in this prefix. So admin/logout will log us out of the admin. We're going to send it to the admin login controller, and then we're going to tell it to use the logout function. We can go ahead and give this a name if we are so inclined. We'll do admin.logout, just like that, and give it a semicolon. Perfect. that should be everything. I think now that I just remembered, we might have missed one little step, which I'm going to go back to in a second. But to get this working. But before we finish up, let's go ahead and do the same thing for users. So we'll make another GET request, and we'll do users/logout. And we're going to tie that to, oh, we forgot to do, by the way, auth. So auth /admin login controller. And then inside of here, let's do the same thing, auth/login controller. And then we're going to do user logout. Okay, not the normal logout because that logs you out of everything, just the user logout. Okay, and then let's go ahead and give that a name. And we're going to name it user.logout. Perfect, like that. Okay, so now we should have two more routes. We got users/logout and admin/logout. And then those are going to point to our controllers and log us out. Now, the one thing that I forgot is that if we go back to our controllers, if we go to the admin controller here, we'll have a problem here because by default, everything uses this guest middleware. So basically, we're not going to be able to access the logout function because the logout function right now is locked into the guest middleware. So you have to be logged out in order to log out. That's obviously not going to work, but that's currently the way the middleware is set up. We only allow people to access the logout function if they're already logged out, which obviously doesn't make sense. So we need to put a little disclaimer on here to tell Laravel not to use this middleware on the logout function, okay? So use this middleware on everything other than the logout function. So to do that, what we're gonna do is pass in a second parameter. We're gonna pass in an array, and we're gonna have the key accept, okay? So we're gonna say accept, and then from here, we can list any of the methods here that we don't want this middleware to apply to. In this case, we just have one, logout, okay? Now just make sure here you've got one array. See, there's an array here for the accept, and then we pass in another array for the different methods. So if you had multiple ones, you would obviously just add to this second array. For one, just make sure it's an array so that it works. I don't think it works unless it's an array for my testing, and then that's it. So now the logout function, this function right here, the middleware doesn't apply to it, okay? That'll allow us now to use it while we're logged in. And it should also block us from if they're logged in, they can't access it. Now let's do the same thing for the login controller. Here's our middleware. You can see we already have the normal logout, but we need to also add the user logout in here because this applies to the full scale logout, which is located in this function in this file up here. So let's go ahead and it looks like you don't need to pass in a second array, but in this case we need to. So logout, and then we're going to do user logout. So now the normal logout and user logout will both not have the guest middleware applied to it. Okay, now that's everything. Let's take a look at the page. Let's go back to Chrome. Let's refresh. Okay, nothing should change. We're logged out as everything. So now let's start logging in. So we're going to go to the normal login page. This is going to log us in as a user. Sure enough, well, okay, oh, wait, we're on the admin page. Okay, we're logged in as user, so let's go home. Okay, so user dashboard, you're logged in as user. Now we're logged out as admin, so let's go to admin. So if we go to admin, we need to log in, so let's do that. We're gonna go to, so now we're logged in as both of them. So let's now head over to /logout. And this will log us out as admin. So we're logged out as admin, but still logged in as user, right? So logged in as user, logged out as admin. And now let's log back in as admin. Okay, so now we're logged in as both of them. And this time let's log out only as the user. So we got to go to user/logout. Looks like we got a problem. Let's take a look at our problem here. Oh, it's users, plural is what it is. Users. There we go. Nope. Oh, okay. So we forgot to call the auth function. Let's go back to login controller. Up here at the top, just make sure we're using auth, the auth facade. in order to call this, we need the auth facade. We didn't have to do it in admin login controller because we had already done it with our previous functions. These functions were already using it, so we had already called it in, but or imported it. But we hadn't done that yet for this one. Okay, so now it should work. So let's go back over here and let's now fresh it. So now we're logged out as users, but logged in as admin. So if I go to admin, we'll see it on the admin dashboard. We're logged out as user, logged in as admin. So if we go to user, or if we go to home, which is the user page, it's going to require us to log in. Let's just do it one more time. Okay, so now we're logged in as one and logged in as the other, and you can see how we can just make this happen. So now we're logged out as admin. Now let's log out as user. But go ahead, go check this out on GitHub. I'll have a link down in the description so you guys can head on over there. You can clone this repository and play around with it all you like, but that's all it takes to handle the logout functionality with multiple types of users or multiple guards. So I saw you guys had lots of questions, lots and lots of questions, lots of comments down below about people having questions about logout. So I wanted to make sure we clarified this before we go on to the final video, which will be forget my password and how to integrate forget my password with multiple types of users. Okay, so hope you guys enjoyed this video. Give it a big thumbs up if it was helpful for you, and make sure to go check out the code on GitHub if you have any questions. You can obviously leave a comment below as well. Obviously, I read the comments. I saw your guys' comments in the previous video, and that is why I checked it out. If you guys are new to this channel and you may want to check out more videos in this series, we have a whole series about multiple authentication in Laravel. If you are just catching in for this video and you have more questions about multiple authentication, we set it up from scratch, and you can take a look at the whole playlist here on screen or down in the description, whatever's more convenient for you. Make sure to subscribe if you have not subscribed, and until next time, I will see you guys in the next video.